heard in Good Friday season, and how we can all play a part and help make it easier for everybody. So, first of all, I just want to start off by thanking all of you for what you do for this church, the hours that you guys put in serving. I know many of you here that are sitting in here serve almost all day on Sundays, and it's awesome. Pastors will call you to go pray with somebody or whatever, and it's just a huge, huge help to us. So thank you so much. You're not going unnoticed. And if you are an up-and-coming deacon, the deacons were set up in the book of Acts chapter 6 when the apostles saw the church is growing like crazy. There's a bunch of people all over the place not getting cared for. And so they basically said, hey, we need to focus on preaching and studying God's word while other people can be raised up to what is in Scripture, set tables, and to help and be the hands and feet of the apostles or the pastors. And so that's why deacons exist, is to help the pastoral staff, the pastoral leadership in the church to really come underneath them and say, hey, how can we help? And so that's why deacons were set up. In 1 Timothy 3, you see the qualifications for deacons and what's expected of them and those types of things, which mostly all of you guys know. You've been through the deacon process with Pastor David. And there's a couple of things, three main things that I just want to touch on briefly, is that deaconship is a calling, deaconship is an office, and it's also something that's a noble task. Or in the book of 1 Timothy, it says deacons gain a good standing with the Lord. And so, first of all, it's a calling. And so how do we know if we're called to something? I know some people in here are up-and-coming deacons. I heard a pastor tell me one time, I'm not sure if I'm called to this. This is something I'm interested in, but I'm not sure if I'm called yet. A good way to know if you're called to something, and I've taken this in ministry, I've taken this outside of ministry into my home, is if the desire is there for me to do it, if the opportunity arises, and if godly people around me are telling me to pursue it, you should try this. Then usually that's a green light. For me to give it a shot, to give it a go. And so right now, if you're on the fence, I don't know if I'm being called. If you have a desire, if the opportunity is there and people around you are saying go for it, I would say jump into deacon school with Pastor David. He'd love to have you. And so it's a calling, and it's also an office. And so this is kind of big. Your guys' role as deacons is different than an average volunteer, let's say. So somebody who comes in and makes coffee, obviously we love them. Without them, we don't have coffee, tea, and all that good stuff. You guys have stepped into an actual office where there is actually more expected of you. You guys are higher level leaders in the church underneath the pastoral leadership. And so we rely more heavily on you. We're probably not going to call the average church attender volunteer to go pray with somebody at the hospital or ask them to do certain things. And so it's an office. You're stepping into something that's much, much bigger. And you gain a good standing with the Lord as well, as Timothy says, or this is a very noble task, where a lot of times as you move up in leadership in the church, you actually get to experience things that the average church attender doesn't get to see, like evidences of God's grace. Like as you come under the leadership of the pastors and seek to help them out, you're able to see awesome things that God does throughout the church. And it's awesome to be a part of that. A lot of other people don't get to see that. When we share evidences of God's grace, mostly all the deacons in the room know about it because they're that involved, they're that invested. And so you guys gain a good standing with the Lord. It's a noble task. You get to experience these things that the average church attender just wouldn't. And I asked Pastor David if there was anything in this meeting outside of what I had that he wanted me to share briefly. On his heart, he wanted me to share with you guys that to provide an off-ramp for anybody who maybe has stepped into deaconship and they've been a deacon for even quite some time, or maybe not very long at all, and maybe they just don't feel called to this. They've stepped into it because they had that desire, the opportunity was, but this is just not something that God's calling to them right now. It's not noble to step out. Obviously, we love you, we want you, but if you've been praying about stuff like that, it's not noble to not be a deacon in the church. If you just want to serve, there's no shame in it at all. We obviously appreciate all of you. We need all the help we can get with 4 pastors and 500 to 600 people. That's a lot to care for. And so we really heavily rely on you. And I know sometimes in ministry, as you serve, sometimes the thing in your head is, man, I don't do very much. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Well, our identity isn't in what we're doing, it's in Jesus. And so, you know, what we're doing for the church, whether it's doing trashes or going to the hospital to pray with somebody, or helping with big services, or coming up to the front to pray with somebody, there's nothing that's too small. Like, it all matters for the kingdom. I was looking online, the top 10 reasons why people leave church. It wasn't because of in the top 10, it wasn't even because of bad leadership. It's a lot of the tasks that deacons do. Like, unclean urinals was number 7 in the top 10 nationwide why people leave church. How the building looks. These are types of things that deacons really handle and help us out with. And so, whether it's taking out trashes, like I said, or going to the hospital or whatever, it all plays an impact in the kingdom. And so, I know sometimes when I lead worship, or just in my life in general, in ministry, a lot of times it's like, why am I doing this? I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. But our identity rests in the person and the work of Jesus. So moving forward, just remember that. I want to encourage you guys, and that you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I wanted to talk a little bit, and this is basically the last part of it. Obviously, the month of March is crazy busy for the pastors with Good Friday and Easter. I want to talk a little bit about from this month for the rest of the year, you guys as deacons and up-and-coming deacons, to really take ownership, responsibility, and initiative in the church that God has called you to. This is something that you've been called to, that you've stepped into, that you want to serve in, and we're going to rely heavily on that. And it's not like Living Stones does a ton of events a year. We tend to do few things and do them well, over and above and beyond. Easter, obviously, Christmas, those types of things, we want to do those things extremely well. And so with Easter and Good Friday coming up here in the very near future, I want you guys to take ownership, to take initiative. Go up to the pastors, ask them, hey, what do you guys need? Is there anything you need for this big service coming up? Is there anything that I can do to make it better, to help? And it was kind of crazy at Christmas this year. We had myself and 2 other deacons tearing down the stage, and we had asked a couple of the deacons to stay and help, but they bailed on us. And we were at the convention center 2 hours later than we were supposed to be, that we paid for. I literally had people working at the convention center coming up to me and say, hey, you almost done? Like, I got a family too. It literally said that to me. And so that's just horrible on our part. And so this is a call for all of us to really step up, take ownership in our church, and take pride in it, and come underneath the pastors and say, hey, how can I help? And I went as far as this year for this Easter service. There's a lot of deacons that are scheduled for ushers and greeters, and that's great. I know who those people are. But I'm going to be scheduling some of you for setup, for teardown, to help in. Pastor Anthony, I talked to him today what he needs help in the kids ministry. Like Pastor Nathan announced it today, they need help in kids ministry. So I went to him and I said, what specifically do you need from our deacons? He said, for the 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., they can come serve one and sit one, but to literally hold babies for an hour to help Cammie out. Cammie's one of our coordinators, volunteers. Most of you guys know her. She's crazy awesome. She's awesome at what she does, but she needs help for some of us just going in and literally holding babies. This is how we serve the church. This is what deaconship is, to come underneath the pastors and say, where can I serve? How can I help? Another big thing that I want you guys to watch for, this is critical, this is big in deaconship. Pastor Nathan, he does the next levels or the announcements at the church. Whenever you guys see anything big, like, all right guys, Easter's coming up on the 27th, that's a big event. Christmas is coming up. Or like recently, we just had 2 classes. We hosted a healing from sexual abuse victims, and we talked about how to protect your kids from sexual abuse. And when you guys see those big things on the screen, as Nathan talks about them, think to yourself, man, that's kind of a big deal. I wonder how, as a deacon, I can take ownership, how I can help in this event. When these last 2 classes, when we hosted them, I know Pastor Nathan was here early making coffee. Pastor David even was calling Pastor Anthony of watching kids. These are things our deacons should be taking ownership in. So the pastors can come and pray with the people that are hurting, and our deacons can help with these hands and feet issues in the church. And so this is not to bash you, this is not to come down on you, but to really call you guys to take ownership in what we're doing here at Living Stones. To encourage you to keep going. I know a lot of times I see all you guys all over the building doing a lot of different things, and that's awesome. But when we have big events coming up, when we have these important meetings, covenant membership meeting, I know Pastor Dave, David Metz, I'm not putting you on a pedestal, but we had a covenant membership party a couple weekends ago. David reached out to Pastor Nathan and said, hey, this seems like a big event. Is there anything I can do to help? And that made Pastor Nathan's day. He told all the elders how just pumped he was that David reached out and said, hey, he wants to help us. And so when we have these big events coming up, like I said, we don't do a lot of big events. We do covenant membership meetings, Christmas, Easter, and we host some classes. That's pretty much what we do throughout the year. Few events, do them well, and then really rely on you guys to come in underneath the pastors and say, hey, how can I help with this? And so specifically, I know you guys do a great job around here and serve well. You guys really do. But I just wanted to be specific on big events that happen, just to take ownership in your church. It would mean a lot to us, and I know it would just help the church out tremendously. Something that I wanted to touch on briefly, Deacon of Operations. Almost all of you, Chad Bear, Deacon of Ops today. Thank you, man. Doing a great job. This is a win. I've heard Deacon of Ops, they literally come up to me and said, what's the point of Deacon of Ops? I don't feel like I'm doing anything today. What's the point of being here? That's actually a win. If the Deacon of Ops has nothing to do, praise God, that means everyone showed up, everyone's doing their job. This is great. And to really, again, taking ownership in the church, if there's nothing for you to do, literally, if all the positions are filled, reach out to the pastor and do something that maybe you're not super comfortable with to grow in. This is disciples making disciples. So if you're not good with talking to people or praying with people, come up with me or Pastor David to the front of the stage and pray with people and watch what we do, watch how we do on-the-spot counseling with them, and learn all these things that you're not comfortable with. And so this is part of, again, taking initiative, taking ownership in the church God has called you to. We want to help you grow. We want to help you thrive. And so if Deacon of Ops, if Chad Bear is completely bored today, which I saw you serving in the booth, so obviously not bored today. But if, let's say Chad Bear struggles with, praying with people, I have no idea what to say if a guy comes up to me and says, hey, I struggle with porn, what do I do? Literally come up to the front, stand next to the pastors, and we'll teach you. Straight up. Work on those types of things. And so another person, David Metz, I reached out to you. Thank you so much for reaching out to Pastor Nathan. That was big for us. Don Zumo, he's opened his house to the pastors to come in and relax at times, to kind of come around and be friends and not talk about church things. So Don, that's a huge thing that you do for the pastors. Thank you so much for that. All of you guys have, at some point or another, have helped us tremendously as pastors, and I just want to thank you for that. But does that make sense as far as taking ownership and responsibility and just really coming underneath the pastors and with these big events that come up? Is that good with you guys? Is that solid? Cool. Who in here is a deacon in training? 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Cool. And the rest of you have been commissioned, I'm pretty sure, as deacons. Jessica, you guys know Jessica. She kills it every single week. You're serving today up here on the... Yeah, that's been big for us too. The deacons being up here to pray with people and to get people plugged in. That's when people can see a face, that's huge. And instead of just sending people here, there, and everywhere, hey, Jessica's going to be up here at the front. She's one of our deacons. She's awesome. Come get plugged in. And so these are things that have just been on my heart as one of the pastors. I'm not heavily involved, but since last Christmas, when not too many people were tearing down and we totally disrespected the convention center, God started laying some things on my heart of how I can encourage our deacons to really take ownership and initiative and to come underneath the pastors and say, hey, what can I do? How can I help? And a lot of the things that deacons do doesn't seem big. I want to do something bigger. I want to have a revelation from God. It's the small things, really, honestly. So we do appreciate you. I do love you very, very much. And if you have any questions or concerns, I'm super approachable.
I've got one.
Pastor David.
More of a question for you. I'll get loud.
Yeah.
You said you're going to plug the deacons in. Are we going to sit on a PCO? How are you going to let them know?
Plug them in where?
It's for the Easter service.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be putting it on the city. So I'm going to post a schedule on the city. So basically what I have mapped out right now, it's going to be this week. It's mainly going to be the men helping with setup and teardown due to the fact that there's a lot of heavy lifting. I'm going to ask some of the ladies, if they're not currently serving, to step in maybe and help hold some babies for Cami Carr as she's running around trying to take care of a lot of other things. Maybe some of you men can even do that first service. But I don't want to spread you guys out thin. Like if you are helping with setup, that's what you do for the Easter service. If you're helping with teardown, that's how you serve at the Easter service. I'm not going to, hey, can you go help this and this and this? I'm not going to spread you guys out, but I'm going to post it on the city. Or I might even give the schedule to Pastor David and have him put it in the Deacon group on the city.
Will you be communicating with them as far as?
Yep. I'm gonna totally, like, as far as setup goes. Obviously, you come here a day early and we load up and we haul down everything on Saturday to the convention center. And once everything's done offloaded, you're done, and we'll handle setup with the stage. And so I'll be in constant communication with all of you, with Pastor David. Be checking the city. That's going to be the main point of contact. And so that's where the schedule is going to be. So be checking the city. I'm not going to text everybody. I'm going to use the city. And I know, again, a lot of you, some of the people that aren't here are already currently serving as ushers and greeters. So I'm not going to schedule them for setup, teardown, or helping in kids. But again, it's a huge event for us. And we're expecting, we've grown, 200 people each big service every year.
Yeah.
So this service, we're looking at possibly 1,800 to 2,000. That's a lot of people to care for.
Yeah.
And so we're going to need all hands on deck. Again, this wasn't a meeting to come and shame you guys or anything, just from a pastor. Like, we need help this Easter service, this Easter season, desperately, from you guys, and to really take ownership and initiative and accountability and all that good stuff. Yep.
I just want to say one thing to you guys. Just first thing I want to say is, like, really thank you for your friendship to us. I know, so I feel like one of the things that kind of has happened at our church that's kind of both positive and also kind of carries some negative things. It's weird to say that, but we've all become such close friends, hanging out with each other all the time, that I feel like sometimes it makes pastoral meetings like this kind of weird. And so I just wanted to address one thing. Like, when Pastor Seth mentioned that during one of the sexual healing classes, I was in here making coffee. I want you guys to know I am not above making coffee, okay? I am not above making coffee. That's why I was in here making coffee. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that I didn't realize there were people that had come in here early to meet and talk and pray with me, and I was making coffee instead of caring for them. And like I said, not above making coffee, but with 20-some deacons, we just have to get to the place where you guys are calling us and saying, hey, what can I do that frees you up? Like, remember, not as my friend, but as my pastor, so that I can help you guys be able to care for the people that you need to. Now, this person wasn't mad. I come out of making coffee. They poured themselves a fresh, warm glass, and then we talked. But I just wanted to clarify with you guys and let you know, we're going to get our hands dirty with you. Okay? We're not going to ask you guys to do things we're not willing to do. But at some point with a meeting like this, we kind of have to put pastor hat on and function according to the way Scripture sets up authority, and really ask you guys to help us with the physical aspects so that we can be shepherds and elders of the church. So I really hope that makes sense. I really hope that none of you guys are hearing that Pastor Nathan's too good to make coffee. That is not at all what we're saying. And so I really love you guys, and I appreciate your help, and going forward, if we can just be proactive, I know that we'll accomplish a lot of things together. So I hope you guys hear that, and I really love you. So.
And with the schedule coming out for Easter, literally, if you see the schedule and you seriously can't, it's not like I'm going to get mad and say, oh my gosh, this deacon's horrible, why is he a deacon? That's not the case at all. If I schedule you for setup or for teardown, and you can't, just let me know. Maybe we can put you somewhere else, or if you're just going to be gone. But just communication. Again, be on the city. I really do love and care for you. And a big part of this, guys, is really honoring the convention center. They are extremely gracious with us. They give us a deal, and literally without them, we would have literally 12 services here on Easter Sunday, which is almost impossible. So I couldn't sing that much. So literally 2 services. They're the only place in Elko County that can literally hold us indoors. And that's an evidence of God's grace and just a call for us to really step up to really honor them. They don't know Jesus. They've asked me personally a ton of questions about Jesus. And I think God's in the business of saving some of them. And we want to set that example. When you see the schedule, let me know if you can or can't, and it'll be out this week. So any questions, concerns about anything, pushback, I can take it. Serving going good, guys? Do any of you ever feel like, man, I don't feel like I'm doing very much? Aaron? Cool.
Sometimes, like in events that happen on Wednesday, like the beach thing, I have a men's group. And
cool.
now I'm doing, youth ministry, and then I'm serving on Sunday. And then it's like, sometimes you get overwhelmed with all the stuff that's going on, and it's like, what do you do? Like, I didn't want to go to the child abuse thing.
It's totally
I didn't
fine.
want to do that.
No, and I'm just saying in general, like as we, like I said before, we don't do a lot of big events, but when we do, and we plan weeks out in advance for these things, I'm not saying like, Aaron, oh my gosh, you have group, you serve a lot, I totally get that, and obviously deacons need a rest, but when these things are planned out weeks in advance, we just need help from deacons. And I'm not saying like you guys don't do enough, like that's not what I'm trying to convey at all.
Yeah.
We totally understand community groups that you guys serve in other areas of the church.
I didn't want to come across that you're telling us to do too much, because that's not the case.
Okay.
But sometimes my point is like you're doing ministry on Sunday in that ministry, and when a big event comes on, I kind of want to do setup. I kind of want to do something different. Maybe that's selfish, but I've been doing a lot of child ministry, and I want to kind of take a break from that, from the Easter service. So I didn't want to sign up, and I told them I don't want to.
Right.
I mean, I'll do Friday, I'll do Good Friday,
Right.
but I kind of wanted to, do a change. I did it last year, and I'm like, I'd rather do setup or takedown, something like that.
Yeah, and that just comes with communication with the pastors. Like Nathan said, approach us. Let us know what you want to do, what you would like to do. If you tell Pastor Anthony, hey, I want to help us set up this year, maybe take a break from kids. I'm sure Pastor Anthony ain't going to beat you over the head. I'm sure he'll be pretty gracious. He's a pretty cool guy. But yeah, it goes back to what Pastor Nathan just said. You guys approaching us and having that communication, taking that initiative and saying, hey, you guys scheduled me for this. Is there any way I can try this or do this or whatever? So, does that make sense? Does that help? Cool. Mo.
I actually appreciate this meeting because it seems like sometimes when we do events, that it's not really planned out well how people can help. Like we'll get like the Christmas service, you get like a text the day before, hey, can you come and help set up? And it's like things like this help us kind of just get prepared and
Definitely.
organized like that.
Definitely, yeah. And that's when go ahead, Garrett. And again, like what Mo said, these things planned weeks out in advance, having, I agree with that. I texted the night before, hey, we're setting up at 7 a.m., can you come down? No, I can't. Our fault, totally. But again, deacons stepping up, coming to the pastors, hey, you've been announcing Easter for the last 3 weeks, I know Easter's in 2 weeks, what do you need? And then that helps us get to the point when we're making plans for Easter to start making those schedules. And like I said, this week I'm coming out with that schedule of different areas of serving. Honestly, Pastor Anthony's here, which is awesome. If you do have an interest in helping with the kids, go talk to him today, and I'll make sure he gives me your name, and I'll put you down for kids. But this comes back to communication and really looking to really serve possibly 1,800 people well. So that's the goal here. And have people meet Jesus and have a crazy baptism service. So, Garrett. Deacon and Trinity.
I was going to agree with Mo that communication prior is really important. And I wanted to, you asked for pushback, and I don't intend to show you disrespect. I wonder though the logistics of having 20 people contact the pastor about what they can do to provide help for a service, how efficient and actually helpful is that? When the reality, what would be efficient and moving people into positions of understanding what's expected of them and then having them be able to help further with things that are missing. So for example, you are going to put together a schedule for the Easter service, will obviously be a huge help. There'll be so little question about what needs to be done and what's asked, and I don't necessarily expect our pastors to do that, but it does seem like that's a very efficient and good way to communicate to people. I mean, like I said, no disrespect, but if you can imagine a Friday where you got 20 phone calls of people asking you what they could do, that would be best case scenario with your heart towards, hey, he asking us how you can help. I get it, but it really does seem quite chaotic.
So with the 20 deacons that we have, a lot of them are already scheduled right now for Easter. So a lot of them are already dwindled out because they're already scheduled for ushers and greeters. So right now I'm literally looking at 9 or 10 deacons. And so those ones that aren't serving, make it a schedule on the city so they know, so there isn't 20 phone calls coming in saying, where can I serve, where can I help? That's why making the schedule first on the city, people saying, oh, I'm serving here, there's no communication involved except on the city. They can see and say, okay, and then they show up.
And the reason I bring this up is, I run sound, and it was kind of my issue that we had these two classes, and it turns out it was necessary. They needed somebody to come in and set them up. And the difficult part for me is, just to be completely frank, my family and I just moved in. We spent the last 2 months just going nuts. And I got calls like right before, hey, we needed at least somebody to come in and turn this stuff on. And I was like, the truth is, yes, we have totally advertised these things. And if I were on the ball all the time, I would be like, oh crap, there's that. And I would admit fully that is a very confident and on top of it person. But I just feel like as a group, it would be more beneficial if for these classes and things, there was at least a list of needs that is like, okay, we're putting together a class on sexual abuse, so we're gonna need the sound and lights turned on, there's a couple of slides, and that's just the same way that we do a Sunday morning. I really feel like there should be that. Not because we're not competent people, but because it's just efficient and it doesn't leave room for error.
And that's where it comes back to communication on both of us. Totally agree with most of it. Text the night before, those types of things. That's not good. On our part,
it's okay. Things totally happen. I just mean, as we look ahead, is it possible that we can get more intentional about saying,
and that's
these are
what,
the must-haves,
yeah.
and then the rest of the people who haven't been scheduled for anything, we should be thinking,
And
okay, I haven't been
totally.
scheduled for anything. Is there a little something extra, something that needs to be done? You just need people to pray. And I definitely get that.
And the must-haves for Easter, all done, all scheduled. And so that's why me going in and making that other schedule of the people that aren't currently serving in any position, so they can look at that. And again, text messages before, 20 phone calls, that's a mess. I totally agree with that.
I think what Garrett's saying is like, he's asking us when there's a class coming up, can we make a post on the city that says class coming up, here are the needs, and give the deacons a chance to respond to it, as opposed to coming up and talking to us in person. Which
Totally.
we can easily do.
You can easily do. We don't do many of those events, so it's easy for us to do. Like this summer, I know we're going to do an event in the park. This is something we'll do. Hey, event in the park. We're going to need this stuff done. Who can show up and help? And that's when you guys take the ownership, take initiative, and come and serve. Literally, many hands make light work, and this Easter event is going to be insane. We're taking all of our own gear this year. All of it. We're not using any of their gear. So it's going to be crazy. So, yes. Good, Garrett. Thank you. Anything else?
Just to throw out an idea that
Yes.
rather than having 20 deacons call the pastors wondering that if the pastors have an idea and post it, this might be a logistic thing to think about in the future, but having a deacon coordinate with the rest of the deacons. Or have deacons
Lead deacon.
We're having it working in that way.
whether it's a duty deacon, whatever you call it. I'm duty deacon next Sunday, never done it before, so I need to figure out what my role is. But yet, for these special events, rather than having the deacons call the pastors, Seth, what can I do? You know, they can call a deacon, maybe that's in charge or whatever the logistics is. That even saves you from answering the phone.
And that's the point of the lead deacons. Livingstone's has lead deacons. That's Pastor David, something that we're working through right now. Lead deacons where the pastors don't even get called. It's that lead deacon who's handling it, and the other deacons go to them, and things get worked out, which would be a huge help to us. But that's just a thing in motion. It takes a little time. Mo.
I just want to thank David for
He was the lead deacon. Any other questions, concerns? Again, I'm not sure what time, but this week I'll have things posted. Like Garrett, like I said, the main things are all taken care of. It's just now the loading, the unloading, the tear down that we're trying to get in motion right now. So if you have not been put on the schedule for usher, greeter, any of those types of things, LS kid worker, just be expecting to be put on the schedule for a setup or tear down or something like that. So to help us out.
Well, if you're on to be an usher, you can stick around and tear down.
All right, Don said it. I didn't say it. There you go. That's the way to take initiative. You're done ushering, people are gone. How can I help? Literally, it was the worst feeling in the world when, what's his name? Tito came and said, I have a family too, bro. I was like,
he was literally throwing stuff at us, like helping
trying to get us out the door. So I'm like, yep, this can't happen again. So they are extremely gracious with us. So he's the guy that's been asking me a ton of questions about Jesus. Me and David saw him in Walmart one night. It was good. So love you guys. We'll see you, some of you, at the 5. Other than that, you're dismissed.